Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar on creating dynamic forms in SharePoint Online without any need for technical skills by using KWIZ Forms. Let me introduce myself. My name is Vlad Catrinescu. I'm a SharePoint Server MVP and independent consultant from Canada. I'm also a plural site author. I do training on a bunch of SharePoint topics. I'm an international speaker. To give you an idea, I travel over 45,000 miles in 2015 only for the SharePoint events without counting all the personal travel. For those of you who are on Twitter, you can find me at Vlad Catrinescu, and you can also follow my blog at absolute-sharepoint.com. So in this webinar, we'll talk about KWIZ Forms. So we'll use KWIZ Forms for all the demos, and I will show you how KWIZ Forms can help you turn your out-of-the-box SharePoint static forms into beautiful dynamic forms that run into SharePoint but respect and add additional business logic. So what is the problems? What is the problem with current form products? First of all, current form products such as InfoPath and other big third-party products, they require really power user skills. They require complicated code. They require you to do complicated logic in order to get what you want. Also, not all of them support all the custom columns, all the custom features you might have, and in some of them the data is not even stored into SharePoint. The advantage with KWIZ Forms is that all the data that you do is stored in a SharePoint list or document library. So if you ever migrate to a future version of SharePoint, all the data is native SharePoint data. So it's a lot easier for you to migrate. Other tools also don't always have integration with other third-party add-ons, and some of them are really expensive because they don't give you only the Forms tool. They try to sell you the whole $100, $2,000 package. So KWIZ Forms' advantage is that you can turn your existing forms into beautiful, smart forms with a lot of business logic. The advantage is that, first of all, it's really easy to use, and you'll see during this webinar that it's really, really easy to use. No technical skills required, and as I said a bit before, it's 100% SharePoint native. So you don't have data stored in another database somewhere else. It's all 100% SharePoint, no editor outside of SharePoint, everything is in there. Also, every SharePoint form list or library already comes with 3 forms. You have the new item form, edit form, as well as the view item form. So they already exist, you just enhance them using KWIZ, and also you don't have to buy a huge suite of products to get what you want. There are 2 big versions of KWIZ Forms. You have the Pro and the Pro Plus edition. You have I know it doesn't tell you a lot when you look at all those features right now, but we will look through all those features, what do they do during the demo, and then you'll understand which ones do you need. And also maybe during the webinar you will say, I only want one of those features or 2 of those features. I don't want to have to buy the whole suite. Well, you can also buy only the features you need. You don't have to buy all the product to get only one feature. So we're not going to spend a lot of time in the slides in this webinar. We're going to do a lot of demos, and I really want to show you the product. So let's go to our first demo. Our first demo will be on context-sensitive forms. So basically, how can we dynamically hide or disable certain fields according to business logic? So let me open up my SharePoint environment. And let's go to a list. For this demo, I'll use the IT help desk list. And let me just try to create a new item to show you what we currently have. As you see, I have a bunch of fields, different types of fields and everything. And our goal in this demo is really to take this form from an out-of-the-box form to make a beautiful, user-friendly form with business logic. The first thing that I want to do and that I don't like in this form is that you see I have a category field over here that's either hardware or software, and I also have a hardware type and software type dropdown. However, users see both, and also I cannot make any fields. Users have to see both, so when they select the hardware, they still see the software and they could select it. It's not the behavior I want. What I personally want to do is I want to make sure that when somebody selects hardware in this dropdown, they only see the hardware type field, and when they select software in the dropdown, they only see the software type field. So in order to get this, let me go back to the IT help desk. We're going to go in the ribbon and go to the KWIZ Forms setting page. And here is where we're gonna play throughout most of this webinar. In my case, I want to hide or disable fields according to dynamic conditions. So I'll go into the dynamic column permissions tab, settings page, and here I can set my settings. And for this webinar, I really want you to forget all the technical how-to, everything technical. I really want you to focus on the business requirements. Don't think at the technical part, think at what we actually want to achieve. So what do we want to achieve? We want to achieve two things in the small demo. We want to only show the software field when the category is software, and only show the hardware field when the category is hardware. So those are our business requirements. So let me start with software. Select a column. We want to do something on the software type. So I select the software type column and I will add a new rule. Here I can, maybe if I want, so here what I can say is I can select what view do I want to apply this permission to. Maybe I don't want them to be able to see it in the new item form, but maybe I want them to see it in the edit item form in case they made a mistake. In my case, I want to apply it to all of them. So I can select one or multiple forms. So let's say new, edit, and view. So I want, in the new edit and view, I want to hide this field. And when do I want to hide it? Business logic. Let's keep it at a business level. I add a condition. So hide this. So hide the software type field unless the category current value is not equal to software. And here we have a preview in business terms that says what we're gonna apply if we apply this rule. So we're gonna hide the software type field in the new edit and view forms when the category field is not equal to software. So let me apply this rule. And let's click save. Perfect. And then we're gonna create, let me go back. Let's create a new rule. Let me choose the hardware type. Same thing, we want to hide the hardware type if the category is not equal to hardware. So new rule, show, we're gonna want to hide it in the new item form, edit item form, view item form, and the condition if the category is not equal to hardware. And we can add multiple conditions if we want, right? Maybe we have something more advanced, we want to add something more advanced, we can add multiple conditions, we can say and, or, so we can really add some business logic. Perfect, so let me apply this as well. So right now you see I have two rules on this form. Hide the software type field when category is not equal to software, and hide the hardware type field when category is not equal to hardware. So let me click save, let me go back to my form and let's look at the result. Let me create a new item. And as you see right now, I don't see hardware or software anymore. Under category, I do not see any. However, if I select hardware over here, you see the hardware type field appeared. If I go and select software, it got changed for the software type field. If I change hard to question, well, they're both hidden because that's the rule we set up. So really easy. It took us like 3 or 4 minutes to build, and we are able to only show the fields that are important for our users. And the thing that I really wanted to see is that it's all not technical, really simple to implement, and it's all business logic. You didn't have to say, okay, how do I hide it? How do I do that? It's all, what do we want to do in business logic terms? So that was the first small demo. Now let's look at the second small demo. The second small demo, we're going to talk about field constraints. So sometimes, we want to make some fields mandatory, and sometimes we don't want to make them mandatory, right? And so it's hard to do that in out-of-the-box SharePoint because out-of-the-box SharePoint only has two choices. Either that field is mandatory or it's not mandatory. But we cannot say, hey, only make this field mandatory when something happens. So let's go back to the form. Like I said, a lot of demos, not a lot of slides. Back to the form, I have a help desk form over here, right? IT help desk. What I want to make sure is that when my help desk people close a request, for example, we have a problem, we have a ticket, we close the request, we want to make sure that they enter this resolution details box. But we cannot make it always mandatory out of the box, because when users would create a new issue, of course there's no resolution details. We only want to make it mandatory when the issue status is closed. And that's something we cannot do out of the box. So let's see at how we can make it work with KWIZ Forms. So first, let me go back to the IT help desk form, list in the ribbon KWIZ Forms. And we're going to look in the fields constraints category. And again, we're only going to talk business. We're not going to talk about how to do it technically or anything else. So what do we want to do? We want to make sure that the resolution details field is not empty. So first, let me choose what column do we want to apply it on. Resolution details. Let me add a rule. What kind of operator? What do I want to do? And as you see, we have a lot of choices. We can put a length. We can put this empty. We can even say, hey, this must be a pattern. So for example, let's say we have a single line of text, and let's say it must be a document name, or let's say it must be an IP address. It must be a Canadian postal code for those of you that are from Canada joining us today. So we can force people to put a certain type of pattern. And if the pattern you want is not there, you can also add your custom patterns. But in my case, what do I want to know? I want to know that my field is not empty. So I want to say the resolution details field is not empty. And now I need to add a condition. When this field must not be empty. This field must not be empty when the issue status current value is equal to closed. And we can also set an error message field. For example, hey, don't forget resolution details is a required field, and let's say before closing an issue. So we make sure we customize it for our users. So what do we have here? We're going to create a rule that says that the resolution details is not empty when the issue status is closed. And if somebody goes against that rule, show the resolution details is a required field before closing an issue error message. So let me click save. Let me click apply first and then save. Let me go back to my form. Perfect. So I'll create a new item. We have two fields that are mandatory, and those are SharePoint mandatory, so they're always mandatory. So let's say, what's the problem? Let's say blue screen on my laptop, report date today. And you see, I'll let the issue status at new, and if I do it, everything is going to work on all right because I don't need that custom field. happened here? Go to all issues. Okay, so we have it here, blue screen on my laptop. If I go back to it and let's say I want to edit this item and I want to say issue status closed, I click on save, boom, we have our error. We have the QuizCom evaluated that, hey, evaluated the rules and said, hey, your issue status is closed, but you did not enter any resolution at all. So we're not going to let you save this item with the issue status closed until you say why you close it. What was the resolution? If I put it to something else, for example, in progress, I'm able to save it no problem. But if I try to put it in closed, edit item again, and I try to save it without a resolution, I will have an error. If I put, let's say, a video driver was corrupt, my field now has something, I click on save, and it worked. So this is how you can dynamically make fields required with business logic behind. Because out of the box, we cannot put that business logic behind mandatory fields. And most of the times when we create a forms, we really want some fields to be mandatory depending on what the client is doing, right? We want to be flexible and we want to have the right information at the right time depending on what the client is doing. So that's it for the field constraints. Let me go back to the slides, one slide, and we're going to talk about now field groups. SharePoint Forms, SharePoint is not known for being the best looking product out there, but it works, it's beautiful, it's kind of responsive. However, the forms are very, very basic, right? It's basically a bunch of fields that we have one under the other. However, we cannot create, let's say, show a form with multiple fields on the same row, or show multiple tabs, or show accordions. And that can be quite messy especially for long forms with different types of information. We cannot really group that with some logic behind. So let me go back to my IT help desk list and let's see how we can make it better. So I'll go in the list, I'll go into the QuizCom form setting, and let me go into field grouping and tabbing. Okay, so I'm in the settings page. First of all, what we can also change, whenever we're in SharePoint out of the box, we only see the field name at the left of the column. We can also make it above the field if we want in our case, or near the field. So we can change that setting. So let me create a new group. I will say the new group setting, the name will be problem details. Because I want to have a problem details with my field and I want to have a resolution details. And let's say by default I want to make it 2 rows. So let me add some rows. So what do I have? The first thing that I want to have the what is the problem on here, and on the right I want to have what is the problem. We have the let's say we want to have the reported by. Let me add one more row. I can actually create this row to, let me add a new row, and let's say I want the description. I want it to take it 2 fields because the description is a multi-line of text. I want to show it as bigger on the form. So let me add description over here and let me make it column span 2. So now I have what's the problem reported by on the same line, description under it. Let me add a row. Let me put here a category. Perfect. Let me add here hardware type. And let me add another row. Let's say I want to put it here. I want to put software type. Perfect. Let me add another row. What else we have left? We added reported by. Let's say we want to have, I think that's about it. Okay, perfect. And now I want to add a new group. So we have the problem details, and now let's say we have resolution details. And and I want to have 2 columns in this one as well. Let me add a row. So first one I want to be assigned to. Then I want to have issue status. And then let me add another row. I want to have the resolution details, and I want this one to take 2 columns as well. So let me apply this. Perfect, save it. And I might have forgotten some fields. So let me go back to the form. Let me create a new item. And you see now we have those, instead of having all the fields in the same form, we now have a beautiful tab form. So I can say, what's the problem? Keyboard not working. Reported by Vlad. Description. My keyboard is not working anymore. Category hardware. And you see it still keeps the hardware and software as we said it. All the other rules still work. So only show hardware when the category is hardware, and only show software when the category is software. So let's say mine is a hardware problem. I don't have keyboard over here, so let's say it's a problem with my laptop, and click save. So you see, as an end user, I don't really care about all the other, everything else. I really only care about this information. And as an IT help desk person, I really want to see the resolution details, right? So I can assign it to someone. I can assign it to Vlad. I can say it's in progress. And I can do stuff like that. So we just made it. Took us about 3 minutes. And we went from our static form to a beautiful tab form. We have different tabs. We have multi-columns. We decide where to show every field. We can make a field take 2 columns if we want, if we think that it should have more place. And something else that we can do is, for example, let me go on KWIZ Forms. Instead of showing it as tabs, we can also show it as accordions. So instead of tabs, let me put it over here, accordion. Let's say we want to collapse them by default. Let me apply and save. Perfect. Go back to forms. Now when I create a new item, you see now I have, it's an accordion, so it's not tabs anymore, but I have problem details and resolution details. So I only see the stuff that matters to me. I don't see all the list when I don't have all that list. I don't care as a user about, especially when I create a new form, I don't want to see all that. So it allows me to group items by logic. So adding business logic, making our form a lot more beautiful than what is normally is in SharePoint. So perfect. Let me go back to the IT help desk form, and let's take a look at our next demo. So our next demo is about dynamic default values. As you know, we already have default values in SharePoint, right? Everybody knows that we can set default values in SharePoint. However, SharePoint doesn't allow us to do, first of all, dynamic default values, and it doesn't allow us to set default values for all the types of fields out there. It only allows us to set the value for certain types. For example, person. We cannot set a default value for the person field in SharePoint out of the box. So let's go back to the demo and see what can we add to this IT help desk form. So what I want to add is, you see when I create a new item, in the problem details, I have a reported by field. However, as a user, I usually always report a problem for myself, right? Unless I'm in help desk, usually I report problems for myself and not for somebody else. So I want that field reported by to default to the person that opens the form, unless they're in the help desk group. because the help desk group usually never opens tickets for themselves. They open it for somebody else, people that call over the phone or text over the chat or stuff like that. So let me go into the IT help desk, QuizCom settings again. And let's go to default values. So again, let's think at the business logic. What do we want? We want the reported by field, add a new rule. Default rule, we want it to be me. So we can always set tokens as well. So me today, QuizCom allows us to do that. So when do we want it to be me? We can say that the current user is not in a certain SharePoint group. So in my case, I want the set reported by field to equal to me, which is the current user, when the user that opens the form is not in the help desk SharePoint group. And at the moment, the account I'm currently logged on is not in the help desk group, so we should see how it works. So let me click on save. Perfect. Let me go back to my form. And you'll see when I click on new item, problem details. Oops. Perfect. Yeah, that's because I'm an external user on this environment. But as you saw reported by, it was my name. It was Vlad Catrinescu that was there. If I opened this form with somebody in the help desk group, you would have seen that the reported by field would have been empty, because the way that we created this rule, we said only apply this rule if the person is in the help desk field. Don't apply it otherwise. And that's something you cannot do in SharePoint out of the box. You cannot add business logic or security, or depending where in what group the user is and stuff like that. You cannot do that in SharePoint out of the box. You can set static default values, but you cannot make them dynamic like we just did. So that's it for dynamic default values. Let's look now at quick item navigation. And this is something that I really like. So QuizCom Forms allows us, and actually before telling you what it does, let's go to a task form and see the problem we have right now. So right now here I have a bunch of tasks. Let's say I want to view this task. I'll click on view item. And you see I'm able to view this task. However, I'm in task 1 right now. Imagine I want to go to task 2. I have to close this one. I have to select task 2, go in the task ribbon, view item again. What QuizCom allows us to do is basically add a next and previous button, so we can easily switch between items in the same list. So if I go to the team task list, I'll go to the QuizCom Forms, and I have the quick item navigation or form quick navigation. And the only thing we have to do is select what forms we want to display it in. Let's say I want to show it in both the view and edit item form. I can select what the link shows, maybe previous, next, or let's say we want to say customize it. Now let's say previous task, next task. We can check this box if we want to remain in the current tab when we navigate through items. And also we can say what view do we want to change it on. Do you want to be in a certain view when we change through items? I will let it in default view right now, click save. Go back to my form. And now if I go on task 1, I look at my item. You see I have a next task button right here that is going to get me to task number 2. If I click on task number 2, now I have previous task and next task. So I'm easily able to change between stuff. Like say I want to change this start date, put it tomorrow. I'm in the edit form right now, so I have an error. It's like, hey, you didn't save this task. We know you want to go to the next one. Click OK to save them. So I save the task. Now I go to the third task. So I save a lot of clicks. It makes it so much easier for our users that maybe have to approve certain fields, or they want to view a lot of fields a lot of items really fast. It really gives them a lot better experience when people have to view multiple items in the same list instead of looking at it, changing something, clicking save, going back to the list, re-clicking on the other item, and so on. So I know you're going to tell me it saves maybe like 10, 15 seconds per item, but when you have 100 items to look for, this can really save you time and can really make it so much faster and so much enjoyable. So it's really a lot better experience for users. And as you saw, it took us like what, 30 seconds to enable? So really easy stuff. Last demo for today, multi-row forms and cascaded fields. So this is something that's a bit more advanced, and this webinar was scheduled for 45 minutes and we have like 8 minutes left. So I want to have some time for some questions and answers. So I already prepared this for you. We're going to look at how we can create an expense report using the multi-row forms and cascaded fields. So what I have here, I created a list called expense reports. I will create a new item. And you see, I already made this field, this form look good. So let's say I want to say Vlad March 2016 expense report. I can say what cost center does it go to? Does it go to HR or does it go to a selected project? Why do I create my expense report? If I have HR, I don't have anything else up here. However, if I select a project, I have to select which project, right? So I'll select a project, let's say a CFR deployment. I want to create an expense report for that project, budget line training. So this is my basic details for my form. As you see, I have beautiful tabs here, and then I can go to my expense details, and here's where I can enter my stuff. And as you know, when we enter an expense report, we never have the same amount of fields, right? We have, maybe somebody has 5 expenses to enter, somebody has 1, and let's say we want to enter expense 1, expense type lunch, amount $10. We have a sum over here, expense 2, enter an expense date over here, type taxi, $25, expense 3, forgot a 3 over here, for other, $100. My sum is automatic, and if I need to add more rows, I can add another row over here, expense 4, and so on. When I click save, all this data is actually saved into SharePoint list in the background, right? So I have this SharePoint list, expense list, and the goal of QuizCom Form is really to keep it as out of the box as possible. So when you migrate to another version of SharePoint or when patches arrive, it doesn't break your whole form as other products. So everything is stored into native SharePoint forms. However, when we look at that expense report, so we open it, we really see the beautiful report. We see the title, the project. We can click on the project, and it's a lookup column, so we can see maybe we would have more details about the project. Let me go back to expense reports, view the March 2016 expense report. I have the budget line X in training, expense details. You see, I see them all here in the beautiful view form. So expense 1 lunch, $10. I see all the columns, I see everything, and it allows me to see the total cost as well. So it's something that I find really, really cool. And you can do stuff that's a lot more advanced in SharePoint that you cannot do out of the box. And it's a lot better than using Excel. It's a lot more dynamic. You can add a lot more rules, a lot easier to use as an user. So that's it for the small webinar. I think we finished 5 minutes before. So QuizCom, they're going to send you the slides afterwards. You can try it for free at http://quizcom.com/forms. You can try it for free. You can install it in your SharePoint on premises or your SharePoint online for free. You have a trial. You can have most of the features to play with. And on the site, if you go at quizcom.com/forms, you have all the contact information if you want to ask more questions. Oops. Or stuff like that.